The episode starts as a woman named Sylvie tries to get a flight to Moscow. The check-in woman tells her she's too late and asks if she is still flying with Mr. Mertens. Sylvie then takes out an urn from her bag, revealing that Mr. Mertens passed away. The woman manages to get her on a flight and gives her a first-class seat. At the same time, a man named Terenzio tries to get any flight due west and gets on one to New York. While in an airport cafe, Terenzio sees on the news people fainting all over the world. While Inez, an internet influencer, panics when her friend from New York chokes while talking to her on the phone as the air hostesses are getting the Moscow plane ready, Terenzio grabs a machine gun from one of the soldiers and storms the plane. He rushes in the cockpit and orders the pilot Mattia to take off, claiming the sun will kill them all. The pilot tries to stop him but causes Terenzio to accidentally shoot him in the hand. One of the pilots is missing too, so Terenzio asks the passengers if anyone is a pilot. Sylvie comes forward, and after threatening her, they take off successfully up in the air. Terenzio tries to convince Matthew and Sylvie that the sunlight is killing people and that he works for NATO. Matthew reveals that when he shot him, the bullet broke the radio. Terenzio asks how far he could fly if he went west, while Sylvie brings a home care worker named Laura from the passengers to tend to his hand. He then makes an announcement to the rest of the passengers that everything is under control, while paranoia settles in within the rest of the passengers. Sylvie and Matthew plan to land the plane in Iceland. Back in the plane, one of the passengers starts to get violently ill, and another one named Ayaz manages to take control of the gun and forces Terenzio to lock himself in the bathroom. He protests, though. But Ayaz points the gun at Matthew and demands to know the truth about the sun. He explains that he had to go with what Terenzio was saying, as he is unhinged and capable of anything. After taking the gun back, Mattia returns to the cockpit and starts to descend as they approach Iceland, as they circle the runway. They see multiple planes on fire on the ground, which stops them from being able to land. Matteo decides to let Terenzio out to ask him exactly what is going on. The latter asks for his gun back and reiterates that they need to fly away from the sun. Unfortunately, they only have around 600 miles left and decide to land in Scotland. Ayaz. Laura and Osman look into the sick passenger, who mumbles that he has swallowed diamonds. While the plane performs an emergency landing on the runway in Scotland, the passengers rush outside one by one and try checking their phones for news. An army vehicle arrives with 3 soldiers who tell them they don't have time to explain, as they need to go now. A flashback of Jacob telling his wife that he has to fly to Moscow for work, as he needs to train some crew. Laura tries to resuscitate the sick man who has stopped breathing, but she is unable to. Outside, the soldiers explained that they are planning to fly with them as they need to. Head west. Jacob refuses, as he thinks that they should head back to Brussels to save their loved ones. Matthew then relays what the soldiers told them: people are dying, even in underground bunkers. As they only have 45 minutes, they decide to get as many supplies as they can. Before leaving, Laura, Sylvie, and Gabrielle have to first convince the mother of the sick child to come with them, as she doesn't believe what is happening after sedating the mother. They all embark on the plane and take off. One of the soldiers, Roger Waters, shows them which direction to take to avoid the sun, and they set their course to Canada. Sylvie leaves him in the cockpit with Matthew and heads back to her seat. She starts speaking to Jacob and explains that the trip to Moscow was planned by her and her boyfriend. After he died, she planned to kill herself, and when she got in the airport, she didn't think there was any point. But now she wants to save people and tries to convince him to fix the radio. Jacob succeeds too, and the internet comes back, which sees Rick looking at a news article claiming that scientists think the event may be tied to the recent solar polarity changes. Horst thinks that it could have caused a serious gamma event, but the scientists who came to that conclusion must be dead by now. This prompts Rick to believe this is an act of God, as he has always communicated with fire. After looking online, Ayaz shows an article he found on the 3 soldiers to Sylvie. They have been transferred from Afghanistan to Scotland, following murder and rape allegations. Suddenly, one of the other soldiers, called Freddie, decides to open a bottle of champagne, and the popping noise panics the old man. This leads to him trying to open one of the exit doors, so Freddy pushes him against the side and he cracks his head open. Dying in the process, this creates a commotion as he tries to get to the body, but a panicking Freddy gets his gun out. After the passengers manage to calm Freddy down, Mattia tells them to try getting some sleep. He goes back in the cockpit with Sylvie, who tends to his wound. She speaks to him in French to make sure Waters doesn't understand, and tells him what she knows about the 3 soldiers. She explains that she has a plan, but will need his help after landing safely in Canada. Mattia tells them that they have 2 hours until sunrise. He sends the 3 soldiers to look for a radio, who then insist to take Gabrielle and Jacob with them as they drive away. They are shocked to see the number of corpses everywhere. While Mattia tells the rest of the group who the soldiers are, they then set out to look for food and fuel as Ayaz decides to bury the dead body as they arrive in a hardware store. Jacob manages to create a diversion and lock the soldiers in the back room. They quickly manage to escape and chase after Jacob, and they leave Gabrielle behind. Jacob arrives at the plane first and tells them to close the door. The soldiers are close behind and start running and shooting towards the plane. As they take off, Rick sees a chip in one of the windows and tries to get them to stop taking off, which is where the episode ends.